Veena in charge ಇದ್ರಲ್ಲ ನಿನ್ನೆ ತನಕ.
I joined last Wednesday.
ಹೌದು ಹೇಳಿ. ನೀವು ಬಿಸಿ ಇದ್ರಿ ಮತ್ತೆ SMS ಮಾಡಿಲ್ರಿ. ವೀನಾಗೆ SMS ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ.
ಒಂದು 3-4 days ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ
ಅದು ಗೇಟ್ ಓಪನ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಬರೀ ಮಾತು. ಕಾರ್ ಬರತ್ತೆ.
ಇಲ್ಲ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಸಾಸ್ಕ. ಬನ್ನಿ. Good morning all. Am I audible?
Good morning, ma'am.
Okay. I will just skip this development of diaphragm because that is not today's topic. Okay. We'll start with the foregut development. The slide is visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is the sagittal view of the developing embryo. So here, this foregut, this yellow structure what is shown is the foregut. It is divided into 3 parts. Sorry, this is the whole GIT which is divided into 3 parts. The cranial part of the foregut. See here, this red line distinguishes the foregut into 2 parts. The cranial part here, clear, and the caudal part. This is the caudal part of the foregut. Then the next arrow here, this indicates the beginning of the end of the foregut and beginning of the midgut, and this is all the midgut here. The third arrow here, this indicates the end of the midgut and beginning of the hindgut. So now today we are concentrating on development of the foregut. See here, this part, foregut, in that only a part of it was covered by me. That was the respiratory system, right? Development of the lungs, which I have already covered it. So you all know the respiratory system, the lung buds, they develop from a small diverticulum from the mid of the foregut, right? So caudal to this respiratory diverticulum, we'll see what are the structures which develop. So here we have the esophagus, the stomach, the liver, gallbladder, pancreas, here, and then part of the duodenum. This duodenum is divided into The duodenum is divided into 4 parts. In the second part of the duodenum, there is an opening. There will be an opening called as the opening of the common bile duct along with the pancreatic duct at the major duodenal papillae. So distal to that major duodenal papillae, there will be the remaining part of second part of duodenum. That means the duodenum will have dual origin from foregut as well as midgut. So that development of duodenum, I will deal with it later. Now we'll move on to development of, first we'll see here, before I begin all the developments, let us see what are the mesenteries which are formed and how the GIT is suspended. So here we can see this is all the foregut, and here you have the midgut and here the hindgut. We can see the mesenteries which are suspending these coils of intestine. So this is the ventral mesogastrium, clear? Ventral mesogastrium. This orange structure is mesogastrium. Ventral to the stomach, this whole structure is ventral mesogastrium, and here there is a part of mesoderm intervening, that is septum transversum. Clear? This structure, brown structure, is septum transversum. Then posterior to the stomach, you can see here, stomach as well as the esophagus also. We can see here there is dorsal mesogastrium. Clear? Dorsal mesogastrium. Now, in the esophagus, we have a similar structure. I think this diagram is not showing it. There will be a ventral mesoesophagus and a dorsal mesoesophagus. Clear? Anterior to the esophagus will be ventral mesoesophagus. Posterior to that will be dorsal mesoesophagus. Then the duodenum. Okay, not only the duodenum, the rest of the GIT will be suspended only dorsally by the mesentery. Clear? Only in the till the stomach you have the stomach and duodenum, you have the ventral part. Only the only stomach we have the ventral part. The esophagus and stomach will have the ventral mesoesophagus and ventral mesogastrium. Whereas rest of the foregut and remaining part of midgut and hindgut, they are all suspended only by the dorsal mesentery. Clear? This is all the dorsal mesentery, which is occupied by artery, dorsal aorta, a pair of dorsal aorta. Here only one is seen because this is sagittal section. Clear? Now here this dorsal aorta that will fuse, actually they both will fuse and they will give rise to a single artery that is going to be your abdominal aorta. Clear? That will give rise to a celiac trunk, which is the artery of the foregut, the superior mesenteric artery of the midgut, and here you can see the inferior mesenteric artery, which is the artery of the hindgut. Clear? This is the basic thing which you have to remember. You should not forget this. Celiac artery, superior mesenteric artery and inferior mesenteric artery. So foregut, midgut and hindgut blood supply. Clear? Then if you remember the main arteries, you can remember the further branches of these arteries. So just to concentrate on the first part of it, foregut derivatives. You have the pharynx, esophagus, stomach, the first and second half of duodenum up to the ampulla of the Vater, then liver and gallbladder, pancreas, respiratory system. Now today what I will deal is about the esophagus, stomach. See, pharynx development, it will be covered in head and neck. Clear? Head and neck. So today I will be covering about esophagus, stomach, first and second half of duodenum, liver and gallbladder. Is it clear? Respiratory system is already covered. Pancreas. Clear? Pancreas development I will teach you when I take the development of pancreas. So in further for some more next week, we have the gross anatomy of pancreas classes there. When I am taking the gross anatomy of pancreas, I will teach you the development of pancreas there only. So here we'll move on to the esophagus development. This is the repeat. See here, the esophagus will share a common structure arising from the cranial part of the foregut, that is the respiratory diverticulum, right, which lies anterior to the esophagus. Now here this esophagus, initially it will be a small tube. Here it will be a small tube. As there is descent of the heart and the septum transversum descends, you see that there will be elongation of the esophageal tubes. So this esophagus extends from the pharynx up to the dilatation of the stomach. Okay, so dilatation of stomach will be found somewhere lower end here. So till there you find the esophageal tube. Now you all know that it is initially attached to respiratory diverticulum by a U-shaped furcula, right? U-shaped furcula here. Now a septum develops in between the esophagus and the respiratory diverticulum, separating both of them. And how do they separate? They separate caudocranially. That means the septum grows from the caudal end of here, that is from here up to the cranial end. and that is how you see that there will be separation of the two tubes. You can see here. This is the food passage, this is the air passage anteriorly. Clear? So this is the all the endoderm, that is your epithelial lining of the esophagus, and whole of the gut I can tell that is developed from the endoderm. Okay. Now, there are some anomalies associated with the development of esophagus. So what are those? So normally you can see here, this is the trachea and this is esophagus. The septum would have separated, right? Septum would have separated and the two tubes are distinct, they are separate from each other. But at times what happens is the anterior part of that tube, gut tube, it will undergo atresia. Clear? So this is posterior part, this is anterior part. The esophageal part will undergo atresia. That means the closure. There is no opening for the food to enter inside. Clear? Instead, the distal part of that will be in communication with the trachea. You can see here. It is communicating with the trachea. That is called as fistula. Already I have told about the fistula in the development of trachea. Here atresia with the double fistula. Both the proximal and the distal tubes of the esophagus are in communication with the trachea, right? So this is double fistula. Then third diagram, you can see here the proximal part of the esophagus is in communication with the trachea, where distal end is atretic. Here that is again the third, another variety of atresia. Then complete atresia, that means there is no communication between trachea and esophagus, but however there will be a partition between the proximal and distal part of the esophagus. Clear? So you see that there is no canalization here. They are closed at both the ends. Proximal and distal part are closed. Then last one is, you see that the esophagus, the distal part is in communication with the trachea. So these are different types of esophageal atresia. Now next is esophageal stenosis. So there will be narrowing of the lumen of the esophagus. So atresia is what? It is a complete closure. There is no communication at all. The food will not enter further. Clear? Whereas stenosis is, it's a narrowing of the tube. Partial entry will be there. Clear? Partial entry will be there. In these radiograms you can see partial closure of the lumen will be there. That is esophageal stenosis. Next is hiatal hernia. Here you can see a nerve weakness is there at the distal part of the esophagus and cardiac end of the stomach. So what will happen is the part of the stomach is going to herniate into the thorax. Clear? Because of the neuromuscular incoordination, part of the stomach, the cranial end, cardiac end will herniate into the thorax through the diaphragm. Here you can see esophageal opening of the diaphragm. Clear? This is hiatal hernia. Okay, that is about development of the esophagus. Now next we'll move on to development of the stomach. See, stomach is what? It is nothing but, again, it is a continuation of the foregut distal to the esophagus. See, initially this stomach is oriented antero-posteriorly. Clear? Antero-posteriorly. So this part will be anterior and behind it will be posterior. Clear? So it will be oriented antero-posteriorly. Now what will happen? Yes, you have any doubts? Okay, so it is oriented, the small fusiform dilatation will be there where the stomach has to develop. Clear? A small fusiform dilatation which is oriented antero-posteriorly. Now what will happen is the posterior part of the dilatation grows more rapidly. Clear? Posterior part of the dilatation will grow more rapidly. Meanwhile, the stomach rotates. That is what is shown in the diagram. Clear? The stomach rotates clockwise to 90 degrees. Is it clear? The fusiform dilatation rotates clockwise 90 degrees. So what will happen to the surfaces and the borders now? There was an anterior border, posterior border, a right surface and left surface. Clear? This was the right surface, this was the left surface of the fusiform dilatation. This was the anterior border. When the stomach rotates clockwise 90 degrees, what will happen to the anterior border? Can anyone tell what will happen to anterior border now? Which border it becomes?
Lesser curvature.
Yes? Yes, right. It becomes the right border.
Curvature.
Yes, good. It becomes the right border now. Clear? The anterior border becomes the right border, whereas the posterior border becomes the left border of the stomach. Clear? Now, when you are observing like this, there is a differential growth in the borders. You can see that the left border is growing very rapidly compared to the right border. Okay, differential growth will be there. So, this left border grows very rapidly compared to the right, and this becomes the greater curvature of the stomach. Clear? Then the right border, this one, this becomes the lesser curvature of the stomach. Clear? Then the pylorus also grows. The pylorus also grows and it grows more anteriorly. Clear? So pyloric part of the stomach that will grow and it will push the stomach more forwards. Is it clear? When it pushes the stomach more forwards, see the position of the lesser curvature. It won't be straight. It won't be straight like this. It is pushed upwards like this way. Clear? So why it happens, I will tell again in the next slide. Clear? So just remember here, anterior border becomes right border, posterior border becomes left border. So right border will form lesser curvature, left border will form the greater curvature. Clear? Then, why the stomach rotates? That is because of differential growth of stomach and also growth of the liver. Now, the rotation which is taking place, it is not only, it doesn't rotate only longitudinally, but it also rotates horizontally also. Clear? So that there was an interruption in between. The slide is visible? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
the rotation of the stomach not only occurs in a longitudinal direction but also in the transverse axis. So when it rotates transversely, what will happen is the pyloric part of the stomach, it will, because of the overgrowth of that pyloric part of stomach, there will be rotation of that part. That is what I mean. Clear? So here this is your nothing but the rotation in the anterior-posterior axis or your horizontal axis. Clear? And horizontal axis. So there will be repositioning of the cardiac and the pyloric ends. Initially it will be straight like this, but because of the pyloric overgrowth, you see that there will be repositioning of the cardiac and the pyloric ends. So what will happen ultimately? You see that the ventral border becomes the lesser curvature, right? Dorsal border becomes the greater curvature. Dorsal mesentery moves to the left. Okay, this red color here, what is shown, it moves to the left, and this gives rise to greater omentum. See, already that about omentum already class was taken, I think, right? So the dorsal mesentery will give rise to the greater omentum, whereas the ventral mesentery, this will give rise to the lesser omentum. And not only that, but something else also, which I will show in the next slides. Okay, ventral mesentery not only gives rise to the lesser omentum, but also something else related to liver. Clear? Now, what you have to remember here is the right vagus. Clear? So initially, the right side becomes the dorsal, right? So the right surface of the stomach was supplied by the right surface of the stomach was supplied by right vagus. Now what will happen now? Right surface would have become the dorsal surface, right? So dorsal surface of the stomach receives the right vagus, whereas left side of the stomach was receiving the left vagus nerve. Clear? So left vagus is now going to supply the ventral surface of the stomach. Hence, when you are dissecting, see the positions of the vagus nerve. They will not be right and left now, or you how you have imagined, like they will be supplying the anterior and posterior surfaces. Clear? Right will go to the posterior surface, left will come to the anterior surface of the stomach. So the basis you should know here. Okay, why the vagus supplies like that? Anatomical basis you have to know. Now, what is remaining here is the ventral mesogastrium. I was telling this is the ventral mesogastrium here, right? So, ventral mesogastrium not only gives rise to lesser omentum. So, what is lesser omentum? See in the next diagram here towards this side. This is the stomach, right? Here, the mesentery, part of the mesentery which is connecting the stomach to the liver, and also part of the first part of duodenum. This is called the lesser omentum. Clear? So this lesser omentum is derived from the ventral mesogastrium. And what else is derived from the mesogastrium, ventral mesogastrium? See this here. This is falciform ligament. Clear? What is falciform ligament? Ligament which is extending from the anterior abdominal wall up to the liver. Clear? So, both the falciform ligament and the lesser omentum are the derivatives of the ventral mesogastrium, because the liver will grow in between. Clear? It will grow in between. There will be splitting of the ventral mesogastrium to give rise to falciform ligament as well as lesser omentum. Okay. This is all again the same which is shown. Now, see, this is the horizontal section of the same. The mesentery is shown here. Try to understand this horizontal section. This part is anterior. This is posterior. Clear? Here you can see the dorsal aorta. This is anterior part. Now here, this was your, here there will be a ventral mesentery. But what is happening is the liver is coming in between here. Clear? So liver grows from the endoderm of the foregut a little caudal to that of duodenum. Okay. So I will show that also later. So here liver will grow. What will happen to the ventral mesogastrium? It is split into two parts. One which is anterior to the liver, that becomes the falciform ligament, and one which is posterior to the liver becomes the lesser omentum. So here the one part of the ventral mesogastrium connecting the liver to the stomach becomes the lesser omentum. Now what is happening behind now here? This is here, right? Dorsal mesogastrium. That is also split into two parts. By what? By the growing spleen. This is the spleen. Clear? How does the spleen grow? Can anyone tell? I think yesterday you had a class on development of spleen. Spleen grows and also development, right? How does the spleen grow? How does it develop? Is it endodermal, mesodermal? How is it? No answer. Okay. Spleen grows from the mesenchyme. Clear? It grows from the mesenchyme between the two borders of the dorsal mesogastrium. This is the dorsal mesogastrium. So what will happen is spleen will grow from the mesenchyme. Small lobules will be formed initially. All the lobules will coalesce among themselves. They will all fuse. Clear? All the lobules will fuse and form one mass, that is the splenic mass. Where is this mass found? In between the two layers of the dorsal mesogastrium. So what will happen to dorsal mesogastrium now? Between the stomach and spleen, whatever is found, that forms gastrosplenic ligament. Clear? And one which is found between the spleen and the posterior abdominal wall, or here you will be finding kidneys. Okay, so that will form leno-renal ligament. Okay, leno-renal ligament. So you should remember this. Don't forget all these. Clear? Ventral mesogastrium will give rise to falciform ligament, lesser omentum, whereas dorsal mesogastrium between the stomach and spleen will give rise to gastrosplenic. Between spleen and abdominal, posterior abdominal wall covering the kidneys. Okay, that will form, this one will form leno-renal ligament. Now after rotation, because I told you stomach will rotate, right? See the positions of all these ligaments. This is the falciform ligament. Here you will find the lesser omentum, then gastrosplenic ligament, and see the leno-renal ligament here. Okay, so leno-renal ligament. So see the positions of the ligaments will also change according to the rotation of the organs. How does the lesser sac develop? Okay, lesser sac. You see here, this is dorsal mesogastrium. Within the dorsal mesogastrium, just behind the stomach, you see that small spaces or clefts will appear. Okay, behind the stomach, in the dorsal mesogastrium, we find small spaces. All the spaces will fuse among themselves. Okay, it will get absorbed, and you see that there will be formation of a space behind the stomach, and that space is called as lesser sac. That is also named as omental bursa. Is it clear? So the dorsal mesogastrium will get absorbed by small spaces within that, and they coalesce and they will get absorbed. That is how you see the formation of the omental bursa behind the stomach. Okay. Now one abnormality in the stomach, here what we see is congenital hypertrophic pyloric stenosis. usually newborn infants, they are present with this. Males are more affected than females. Okay, that is usually called as CHPS. What will happen is there will be hypertrophic musculature at the pyloric end of the stomach. So what will happen to whatever milk the child takes, that will get accumulated here, because there will be delay in or you see that the pyloric end will be almost closed. So you see that there will be accumulation of milk, and if the child goes on consuming milk, it will enter into stomach. Clear? Little bit may be absorbed, but most of it remains in the stomach. And further, what will happen if it goes on drinking more and more milk? What will happen? It has to vomit, right? So the child will present with a huge amount of vomiting. It takes the milk, after a while it starts vomiting, not immediately. Immediate means there will be something abnormality in the esophagus. Here esophagus is normal, only because the pyloric end is stenosed here. You see that whatever milk regurgitates back into esophagus, and that is how later on, after a few maybe hours, it will vomit. Clear? Once the stomach is full, it will vomit. So that is the sign of pyloric stenosis. They are repaired surgically. This is the radiogram which is showing the enlarged stomach. If you find like this, that means there is something abnormality beyond the stomach or at the distal part of the stomach. Clear? Okay. So the little I will tell about the spleen development. Already I have told. So here mesenchymal condensation will be there in between the two layers of the dorsal mesogastrium, and hence the left side of the spleen, that will be under cover of the left layer of the mesogastrium. This part will be showing small indentations. Clear? In the spleen, small indentations will be seen, and that part is going to present as superior border of the spleen. Clear? Left part of the spleen will present as superior border of the spleen, and usually the superior border will be notched. Why it will be notched? It indicates lobular development of the spleen. Now, what are the positions, accessory positions of the spleen? If you remember this, good. Try to remember. So, accessory positions of the spleen. It may remain in the hilum of the main spleen, in the tail of the pancreas. See the percentage here. In the gastrosplenic ligament, splenorenal ligament, or you can call it as lenorenal ligament, greater omentum, or even in the pelvis. Clear? These are the positions of the accessory spleen. Okay. We'll move on to development of liver and extrahepatic biliary apparatus. So, the liver, so this is all stomach, right? Then beginning of the duodenum. Here, what we see is a small hepatic bud arises from the ventral border of the foregut. See, this part is sagittal section. You can understand this, right? So, from the ventral part of the distal part of foregut, it is almost the distal part of foregut. Okay. Here you can see a small hepatic bud arises. Clear? This hepatic bud grows. Eventually, it divides into two parts. One is pars cystica, then the other one is pars hepatica. Here, hepatic bud divides into pars cystica and pars hepatica. Pars cystica will give rise to, what is this? Gallbladder and the cystic duct. Okay, cystic duct is nothing but duct of the gallbladder. So pars cystica will grow and it will give rise to gallbladder. Then what happens to hepatic bud or pars hepatica? That will invade the septum transversum. This is septum transversum. Clear? The brown structure is septum transversum. So here you can see there is invasion of the pars hepatica into the septum transversum. What will happen further? This pars hepatica will divide into right and left branches. Clear? And it divides further to give rise to cords of cells. Clear? Cords of cells. The same pars hepatica divides further, it branches and further branches to give rise to cords of cells, giving rise to the parenchyma of the liver. Clear? So parenchyma means what? You have the cells mainly there. Which cells? Hepatic cells. Other cells are also there. Kupffer cells, sinusoids. Clear? They are all developed from the pars hepatica. Then what is the role of septum transversum here? The whatever stroma or the connective tissue of the liver is there, that is developed from the septum transversum. Clear? So parenchyma from the pars hepatica, whereas the stroma from the septum transversum. Now this liver enlarges to intervene between the stomach and the anterior abdominal wall. Clear? So once it invades, you are seeing the development of two different ligaments. Clear? Falciform ligament here and the lesser omentum here. Now, that I told about liver and gallbladder. Now, the position of these openings will not remain same. Clear? Position of the openings of the hepatic bud will not be anterior like this, as shown here. What will happen is, this will rotate to the posterior part. Okay? Why that rotates? That rotates because there will be rotation of the duodenum. Okay? Because ultimately this duct should open into second part of duodenum. Right? Once the duodenum rotates, you are seeing that this whole thing rotates to the posterior part. Clear? Now we'll see a few anomalies of the gallbladder. These are sometimes if you get questions on extrahepatic biliary apparatus, you need to add a note on development. Usually if you get a long note, okay, sometimes you get a long note on extrahepatic biliary apparatus. In that you explain the normal anatomy of all the structures, and later on you do add a note on development and some of the anomalies here, which will fetch you more marks. So here, what are the few anomalies which we find? So here double gallbladder. See here, double gallbladder. That is because the duct, whatever diverticulum arises, no, they will divide, that pars cystica, that will divide to give rise to two gallbladders and two cystic ducts. Clear? Next one is double gallbladder, but a Y-shaped cystic duct. Clear? Then bilobed gallbladder. That is because a small septum will be there within the gallbladder. Clear? A small septum that will divide the gallbladder into two lobes. The next is diverticular. Small diverticulum either may arise from the neck of the gallbladder or from the fundus of the gallbladder. Then there may be an hourglass constriction between the within the body only, body of the gallbladder. You find an hourglass constriction. Then folded gallbladder at the infundibulum, you can see here, folded gallbladder. Then Phrygian cap is there. Okay, what is a Phrygian cap? You would have seen a cap like this, right? A cap wearing, usually worn by small kids like this. This is nothing but at the fundus of the gallbladder. You see there will be a bend here. When there is a bend at the fundus of gallbladder, that will look like a Phrygian cap. That is commonly called, I think you would have seen that cap also, Phrygian cap. Then the gallbladder may be found within the liver. Clear? That is intrahepatic gallbladder. Then floating gallbladder. So when does it float? When it carries a fold of mesentery, it floats. Clear? Some one or two dissection specimens when we were dissecting, we have come across this floating gallbladder. Okay, so they will be suspended by fold of mesentery, that is floating gallbladder. So these are the anomalies. Okay. Next we'll move on to development of the duodenum. Here, so as I told you, this duodenum will develop from foregut and also midgut. Clear? It develops, so remember this, it develops from foregut as well as from midgut. That means it has to be supplied by two arteries, artery of the foregut and artery of the midgut. So the celiac trunk and superior mesenteric artery, both of them supply the duodenum. Here, where is the demarcation? It will be 10 centimeters distal to the pyloric end of the stomach. There will be a small elevation called as major duodenal papilla in the interior of the duodenum. Clear? That major duodenal papilla that demarcates the foregut from the hindgut. Distal to the papillae, a summit will be there. Okay? Distal to that summit, that is midgut. That summit is from foregut and above that is also from the foregut. So here you can see there will be anastomosis between the branches of celiac trunk and superior mesenteric artery. You can see here the superior pancreaticoduodenal artery and inferior pancreaticoduodenal artery, they anastomose to supply the second part of the duodenum. That indicates the dual source of origin of the duodenum. What are the steps in development of duodenum? First is formation of duodenal loop, which is convex forward. That means initially the duodenum will have a loop, just like the stomach. It will have a loop which is facing forwards. Clear? A U-shaped or a C-shaped loop rather than a U. A C-shaped loop which will be facing forward. That means that also will have an anterior border, a posterior border, a right surface and a left surface. Right? Now, what will happen? There will be outgrowth of hepatic bud and pancreatic buds. Then further, there will be differential growth rate and rotation of duodenum also. And there will be absorption of dorsal mesentery. Let me explain this. Okay, see here, this is the stomach here, and here you have the duodenum. Clear? This is the duodenum. Here you have the hepatic bud developing. Now initially it will be anterior and posterior borders for the duodenum. Later what will happen is the coils of large intestine will be growing. Okay, see, all the development is all together. It doesn't mean that only first esophagus will develop, then stomach, then you have the large intestine. No, not like that. The whole development process will be together. Clear? So meanwhile, when the duodenum is developing, the large intestinal coils, initially they will be out of this umbilical ring. See here. Huh? They will be pushed out here. They will be here. Huh? They are pushed inside during the growth of the midgut. One stage is there where the intestinal coils are pushed inside. Clear? When the large intestinal coils are pushed inside, the large intestinal coil will push the duodenum towards right. Okay, so whatever large intestinal coils are there outside, they are pushed inside now, inside the umbilical ring. So once they are pushed inside, those large intestinal coils will make the duodenum to move towards right. Clear? It moves towards right, and then see this. initially anterior posterior borders. Once this also undergoes rotation, the duodenum also undergoes rotation. The second part of duodenum undergoes axial rotation. Clear? When it undergoes axial rotation, what will happen to this hepatic bud here? This is the hepatic bud. When this part moves posteriorly, eventually it carries the hepatic bud behind. Clear? That is why you see that later initial stage is here. Then after the rotation, can you see here? This is the hepatic bud which was seen anterior, that has become posterior now. So that is why you see the opening of the hepatic bud in the posteromedial wall of the duodenum. Clear? Posteromedial wall of the second part of duodenum. So here, because of axial rotation, you see the there will be movement of the hepatic buds. Now, I am telling only about hepatic buds here. I am not concentrating anything on the pancreatic buds. But the diagrams are already shown here. The pancreatic buds are also there. So, from where do these pancreatic buds arise? Yes. See here, this diagram which I had put before, yes, see here, there is a pancreatic bud also developing from the same anterior border, right? So there is no only one pancreatic bud, there are two pancreatic buds. One is the ventral pancreatic bud, the other one is the dorsal pancreatic bud. Now I don't want to cover in detail about pancreatic buds here, clear, which I will teach you in pancreas. So here the ventral pancreatic bud will become posterior now because of the axial rotation of the duodenum, and dorsal pancreatic bud will become anterior because it is pushed anteriorly. So just remember about rotation of the duodenum. Now what will happen once the duodenum rotates? The anterior border, posterior border, what happens to these? We'll see what happens to mesentery of this. See this. See, initially this is the duodenum. Here it is carrying the dorsal mesentery. So do you remember, this one is the dorsal mesentery, right, attached to posterior abdominal wall. Now what is happening here is, see here, because of rotation, the posterior abdominal wall and the dorsal mesentery are getting absorbed. That means they will undergo zygosis. They will fuse and they disappear. Clear? The dorsal mesentery covering the posterior surface of the duodenum and the mesentery, the peritoneum, covering the posterior abdominal wall. They will fuse. Once they fuse, they undergo zygosis. That means they get absorbed. Once they get absorbed, posterior surface of the duodenum will be in direct contact with the posterior abdominal wall. There is no peritoneum covering the posterior surface of the duodenum. Clear? Because of absorption of dorsal mesentery and the peritoneum over here. So that is why what happens to duodenum? It becomes a retroperitoneal organ. Clear? Retroperitoneal organ. That means only the anterior surface of duodenum is covered by peritoneum. Posterior surface is devoid of peritoneum. Clear? So this is the basis why duodenum is a retroperitoneal organ. Now, what I have shown in this slide. Initially, the lumen of the duodenum will be closed by the proliferating cells inside. That will be solid stage. Later on, it will start recanalizing, stage of recanalization. Then ultimately, fully recanalized duodenum is seen. Clear? For most of the organs, it is like that. Okay. Now, what are these anomalies? Duodenal atresia. Like esophageal atresia, you have duodenal atresia, complete attrition of the lumen of the duodenum here. The next is Duodenum may be blocked by annular pancreas. Annular pancreas is an anomaly of the pancreas but affecting the duodenum because it is completely encircling the duodenum. You have any doubts in this? See, so many times you get questions on second part of duodenum. Clear? So you have to write about the second part of duodenum. Okay, listen to me. Second part of duodenum will come as a gross anatomy question. I think duodenum is not yet covered, gross anatomy, that will be taken. Along with that, you have to add a few points on development of duodenum. Always, anywhere they are asked, no, try to cover a little bit about the development. Few points and one or two diagrams. Clear? Then even pancreas, that I will teach later, I told you, right? Gallbladder, all these are few small topics, extrahepatic biliary apparatus that may come as a long question. In that, you need to include the development. Usually, try to include the development. Here, you have any doubts, you can ask now. No doubts? Okay, try to read this and draw the diagrams and read. Okay, that will be easy for you to follow it. You can leave the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.